Welcome everyone. Assalamu alaikum. This is Siptain, CEO of Smartbenefits. Uh, I want to welcome you all today to this session where we're going to talk about how we are dealing with remote work post COVID, post pandemic, and how companies are adopting either going for work from office, work from home, or hybrid policy. And today I have Mashood. Mashood is the CTO at Sasta Ticket. He leads the engineering team over there. He enjoys building awesome products and working with open source technologies. He's also an active developer, community member, and currently serving as Google developer expert. He's often speaking, you can see him speaking at different conferences and mentoring different startups. Welcome, Mashood, to the webinar today.
Thank you, Zubin. Thank
Uh,
you for having me.
Great to have you here. So I'll just go straight to the topic and I'll start with something that we all face. So I think March 23rd, 2020, when the government announced the entire country is going on a lockdown because of COVID because of pandemic. And I think 2 hafte tak completely everything was shut down. Uh, what measures like you took or Sasta Ticket took as a company immediately to really tackle that situation? And kya kiya tha? Can you just elaborate and help us understand that
Sure,
what journey that you guys took?
sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back to it, and it's very scary time, I think, especially for us, Sasta Ticket, because for most companies, though, lockdown presented challenges, maybe in terms of access, yeah, zero sales or anything. We were at that point growing really fast, and thousands of orders a day, and suddenly it turns out it's a lockdown, and then there's a travel lockdown, and all the flights are cancelled. So we had like tens of thousands of tickets issued at that point, जो हमने refund करने थे, right? Or it did not just become a survival thing. It was actually suddenly a very weird place to be in, because we actually had to work twice as hard suddenly, because we had to make sure that we were still accessible to the customer, or we could still reach out to them and let them know कि, we're not gone. अभी ये सारा हो रहा है, and we will figure you out and we will help you. A lot of realizations at that time, a lot of fun. But coming to the point, so for us, if you look at it as a company, we have two different kinds of work roles basically. एक obviously हमारा tech product design is it's very remote friendly in nature. We always मेरी background ही ऐसा था from recursion always. We're always very relaxed about the whole thing. So we had a lot of good practices in place, and we'll talk about what those were. Um, so when this immediately happened, this side, the tech side of things, was not a concern. We were already in that momentum. We simply started working from homes, and there were issues. We'll talk about those issues as well, but it was predominantly all right. The challenge was definitely for our customer support team, our operations team that had to be on site in office. And we went around trying to look for different solutions for them. Fortunately, I think एक दो दिन का बहुत ही strict था, but then they started allowing essential services and stuff like that. So उसके अंदर फिर we were able to get some folks into our office and man our phones. But it was definitely a scary time, because also there was a lot of uncertainty at that time, right? कि क्योंकि वो इतना बड़ा backward आया था, so everybody was like, what is going to happen next? So I would like to think that work from home normally would have not been a problem, right? मगर वो जो COVID का जो work from home था ना, that was a very special case, and I think we should always take that into consideration when we're talking about it. So because इसमें जो एक psychological factor था, that was pretty heavy on for everyone involved, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I think the most affected industries was travel. Everything just completely gone blackout,
Yeah.
and must have been a difficult time as a company, and obviously keeping the team together as well
Yeah, yeah,
in certain situations, because you don't know when things are gonna go normal, when
यही बात.
when are we going to resume business, when are we going to resume, अभी तो सब refunds जा रहे हैं, अभी तो सिर्फ माइनस हो रहा है, so
ऐसे,
when
yeah,
when
exactly,
are
yeah,
things going to be
yeah,
positive,
yeah,
yeah. So
exactly, yeah. So
how
बिल्कुल.
had I didn't like thought about this, but what was like, how did you guys motivate your team at that point to really get them stay on the course, regardless work from
Yeah,
home, regardless work from office, that doesn't matter.
yeah,
Just keeping them motivated it was a must have
yeah.
been a difficult thing.
Yeah, I think, and that's where I feel like very grateful to be here, part of the amazing team that we have, right? Right from the top, the leadership team and everyone I work with. So once the thing kicked in, we understood as a team that we had to be present for our customers. We had to keep building. But one important that was very important was कि जो जिस direction में build कर रहे थे, that was no longer valid. Now we had other problems. हमने different और teams को support करना था different तरीकों से. So I think the number one thing, and this is generally important in work from home, whether or not you have COVID, I think is transparency, right? So again, amazing work done from the leadership side of things, making sure that telling everyone where we stand today, like how much runway do we have, what's the situation like, having that level of transparency and the level of trust between your colleagues that allows you to keep operating at that momentum, right? वरना तो सब लोग कहते हैं यार पता नहीं कंपनी होगी नहीं, but we're very clear. It's like, yeah, this is the situation, and this is the amount of funding we have at this rate. This is how it's going to end. Until then, we don't know where this is going, but we will continue to do. We have these problems at hand. We need to solve them. We have to serve our customers. Let's keep on doing it. In order,
Amazing.
since in the start we were not very sure about कि कितना कितनी देर तक चलेगा ये. One of the precautions that we took was that we decided to go on reduced pay with the whole team. But the good thing that I really liked was that we didn't fire anyone at that time, because we felt that was not needed. With reduced pay, we were able to kind of keep the momentum going. And then when I think it was in a month later in June, they were already we could already tell that there was a pressure that was starting to lift already, and the market was pretty sure that in the next 3 months things would start opening up. So using that information, we started getting a little more confident and kept rolling on in that direction.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question about layoffs, and I think you've already addressed it. And those were one of the practices that we did as well. And obviously, we only did it on the management level, and everyone, very consentfully agreed to it,
Mm,
and did
yeah,
not, did not back down and said, "Okay, no, we should not do that." So
yeah,
yeah, I think people understood from as long as transparency is there. I think people are ready to understand the situation. So
बिल्कुल.
moving on, like if I talk about your tech team, seems like your tech team, uh, specifically already had some measures in place even before COVID. They were managing their work from home. So what was
Mm,
going on? So since you said that it was completely like it didn't change much for the tech team. So what
yeah.
were the things that you were already doing before COVID and that just kept on going?
Yeah,
If you could,
yeah. So for that, we actually have to go a few years back, and this was when I set up my previous company. That was Recurship. It was a software
right,
house consultancy. I did that for a bunch of years. So most of my team, when Sastatic had acquired Recurship, came from there,
right,
and the culture obviously came from there as well. So Recursion, a very central piece that was very important for me was how do you kind of build uh, the best the DX developer experience for the team that was working for me. और उसमें एक जो चीज that kept coming up back again and again was workplace flexibility, right? Not just work time but workplace. So it could be that you could be sitting in the office or you could be sitting anywhere else. And how do you kind of enable that? How do you kind of um, do that well? And because of that, I actually spend a lot of time reading about this, how companies do this. And you have some really, really good companies in the world, including companies like GitLab and others, who are completely remote, 100% remote, and they're doing a great job of it. So because of that, there were certain things that we'd always kept in mind. इसमें छोटी छोटी चीज़ें होती हैं. Sometimes we kind of overlook them. One of the things that we always pushed on, which is I think generally a good thing to have, is stuff like asynchronous communication, right? बहुत कोई बड़ी चीज़ नहीं है. आपने you're using usually using a chat tool, Slack हो सकता है, Skype हो सकता है, whatever you like, it doesn't really matter. But having that culture of asynchronous कि यार मैंने एक चीज़ सवाल पूछा है तो मुझे उसका उसी वक्त जवाब नहीं चाहिए. I can continue other work while I wait for that response. And the other side also knows कि नहीं यार अगर मैंने अभी respond नहीं किया ना तो क़यामत नहीं आ जाएगी. I can finish the work I'm focusing on, and then I can kind of respond back. So that was there. That was I think a big part of just क्योंकि आपको देखो ना when you go remote, what's the first challenge you come in? That's communication and collaboration,
Yeah.
and this solves the big chunk of the problem that comes into place, right? The second part was collaboration, and then not just collaboration, but the big challenge that usually comes in is from a perspective of just bringing everyone on the same page. Collaboration उस perspective के साथ, and उसके लिए from the start we've had a very strong back on documentation. कि मीटिंग्स को डॉक्यूमेंट करना है, प्रोसेसेस को डॉक्यूमेंट करना है, अपनी जितनी भी काम हो रहा है, क्या हो रहा है, क्यों हो रहा है, कैसे हो रहा है, उसको डॉक एंड व्हाट दैट ऑटोमेटिकली डज इज लाइक ट्रांसपेरेंसी के साथ इट अलाइंस एवरीवन कि अगर किसी ने देखते हैं यार वो एक्स वाई जी फीचर पे क्या काम हो रहा है, वो जाकर डॉक्यूमेंट खोलेगा, उसको सारा नजर आ जाएगा. अच्छा यार ये काम हो चुका है, ये एक्शन प्लान है,
Hmm.
ये डेडलाइंस है, ये सब कुछ है. ही डज नॉट हैव टू बी इन द मीटिंग. वो मीटिंग्स नहीं भी अटेंड करता तब भी उसको पता चल जाएगा. So there were these elements that we already had in our team, which when we switched over, they continued like that. हम लोग in office में भी करते हैं, हम लोग और out of office भी करते हैं. So that kind of makes it just easy for us to transition back and forth. We were almost all of us were in office right before COVID, and but it was always understood कि अगर आपने कोई करना है remote work थोड़ा सा या आपने घर से काम करना है तो there was never like a आप नहीं कर सकते, but with reason there was there. But I think now it's become a lot more flexible as time has passed.
Right. Amazing. So I understand during COVID you were mostly remote when, uh, and now you've transitioned into flexible. So I'm understanding it's not permission based. Is it permission based or is it not permission based? And what is the right thing to to approach this thing in
हाँ.
terms of putting these practices into place?
हाँ, तो इसमें यार I feel कि so I can only speak for a very small segment of the market, which is a tech space, software engineering, product companies, where you can have a specific culture, जहाँ पे you can enable communication like this
Right.
remotely. You can enable collaboration and document. There are other industries, including our call center, which the way it is not possible, right? So so I think it will at the end of it depend on the company and the kind of work you're doing कि वो उसके ऊपर पॉलिसी में से डिपेंड करेगी. मगर from my experience working with people will always prefer greater flexibility, right? So and sometimes they don't even have to use it, right? It's just the having that giving them the permission to कि हाँ यार अगर आप करना चाहें आप कर सकते हैं. And but obviously with that you have to be ready for it, right? You have to make sure
Right.
that you have the protocols in place. So
Yeah.
so as long as that's there, I think that's the important part. But as of right now, just to answer that question specifically, we're actually right now in hybrid. So um we're not actually fully
Fully
back in the
remote.
office. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So and we chose that so this was again through feedback, right, from the teams that they felt that this was like a good mix, and that they could collaborate in office, which I think is super important. And without it, uh, there are gaps that appear over time. So it's just useful to have everyone collab, but you don't have to be in all the time. So it's just about basically about aligning the teams together so that they can
Right.
come in maybe twice a week or thrice a week and sync up with what's happening in the office.
So you talked about that there is a culture of documenting things, putting things together, so that the other person, whoever is collaborating with you on the same work or similar work,
Yeah.
can see where you are, and then everything is transparent to everyone else as well.
Yeah.
Um, but isn't it like and this is good for the product, if you're building a product, and which is something which is, you are always, optimizing, enhancing, improving all the time.
बिल्कुल.
um, isn't it sometimes tech companies के अंदर ये, या product companies में होता है यार, documentation बाद में कर लेंगे, कोई मसला नहीं है. And this is something which, but what I understand from your point of view is really crucial. If you want to go for hybrid approach or 100% remote, you need
Remote.
to have this in place.
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I so you have to understand, right? So this is not something a lot of people do, but that's also so the most common excuse you'll say कि जी time नहीं है हमारे पास document करने का,
hmm.
and and that's fine, that's fair. Sometimes you're moving fast, and it might feel that it's irrelevant. more document लिखूंगा
Or you
वो
are short
expire
on
हो जाएगा.
resources. Maybe you don't have
हाँ.
resources, you don't have enough resources.
Exactly right. So but उसका जो फिर जो downside होती है, that is very, you're looking at a very specific problem that this solves, right? This is purely for alignment and
Yeah,
bringing everyone on the same page, and you
yeah,
can do that by having meetings every day, right?
yeah.
कि हाँ जी हर रोज alignment meeting होगी और सब लोग वो बैठ के बता. Or you can
Hmm.
have a document जहाँ पे जो जिस टाइम पे जाके उसको अपडेट कर ले और वो उसके ऊपर अपडेट्स
Hmm.
ले ले, and you can get a complete
I
picture,
think it's
right?
a matter of culture of
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
taking out 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, maybe at the end of the day, just going there, putting all the stuff there, and like
Yeah.
एक वर्चु आपको बन जाता है ना, एक हैबिट बन जाती है कि भाई करना है यार.
Yeah,
It's
so I
not
think
something.
it's before the habit part. I think I would actually push on the process part. So
Right,
I'm extremely process driven. I have a rule generally कि अगर मैं कोई भी काम करने जा रहा हूँ पहले मैं उसका डॉक्यूमेंट पहले बनाता हूँ, right? And
right,
this is a cultural thing that we have कि अगर हमने कोई चीज़ शुरू करनी है तो उसका एक पहले डॉक्यूमेंट बनता है, और जो भी आपके जहन में ना आप उसमें लिख दें, राइट?
right.
बेशक ज़्यादा है कम है, दो लाइनें सिर्फ टाइटल डाल दें, मगर डॉक्यूमेंट एक बन गया. नाउ बिकॉज द डॉक्यूमेंट इज देयर, एवरीवन कैन स्टार्ट पॉपुलेटिंग इट, बी इट रैंडम आइडिया, कोई और प्रोडक्ट ऑप्स का बंदा देखेगा, अच्छा डॉक्यूमेंट बनाया किसी ने इस आइडिया पे, मैं अपना भी कुछ डाल देता हूँ इसमें, कमेंट डाल
Hmm,
दूंगा, कोई अपना आइडिया डाल दूंगा,
hmm,
राइट? एंड दैट जस्ट एक तो इट इनवाइट्स ऑल ऑफ दैट कोलैबोरेशन नेचुरली, जो वैसे भी नहीं होनी थी.
right,
उस मीटिंग में उस बंदे
right.
ने होना भी नहीं था, बट ही स्टिल
Hmm,
इज इनवाइटेड टू डू इट. But the second
hmm,
good part is कि now because you have a document, you are incentivized to fill it up as well. So that's something that as a process, we do quite consistently across all of the different divisions that we have, and that allows us to kind of build it up over time.
hmm.
इसके अंदर फिर I'll also add कि it's very nice to say कि हाँ जी हम हर चीज़ का document करते हैं, but there comes a point where you also have to start thinking about organizing your documentation, right? Because
Yeah,
having 10,000 documents is not very helpful, और आपको पता ही नहीं कहाँ पे है और क्यों
true,
है और कैसे है.
true.
तो it's a very dedicated effort that's required behind this, और उसमें actually within engineering I do courses, we do training specifically around how do you write documentations and stuff like that, क्योंकि it's जैसे आपने कहा वो it's not everyone can write documentation, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's definitely a culture thing, and it's not as straight off कि भाई ऊपर से कोई आवाज लगाए कि यार अब सबने डॉक्यूमेंट लिखने हैं. It has to be done. It
and then
has to
and
be
then
done
as you
in
said, it's a
different
part of
process.
the process, so you put them through a training as well, so that ऐसा ना हो
Yeah,
कि कोई और डॉक्यूमेंट कोई अच्छा बना रहा है, कोई कोई एकदम ऐसा बना रहा है कि दूसरा समझ ही नहीं पा रहा कि लिखा क्या है उसके अंदर.
yeah,
And
yeah,
this can, so even just saying that you need to do it doesn't solve the problem. You just have to make sure that you take the right steps to achieve. One of the things that
agree.
you talked about was, you touched upon was कि call center है, sales है, support है, इनको आप रिमोट तो करना नामुमकिन है, ठीक है ना? सो
मुश्किल है.
एंड मुश्किल है, नामुमकिन नहीं है. लेट्स से
Yeah,
दैट.
yeah, yeah.
एंड यू हैव लाइक देयर इज़ अ टेक टीम, जो को जिसको कंपनी में जो है एक अलग दर्जा हासिल है, और एक जो है वो कस्टमर सपोर्ट या सेल्स टीम है जिसको एक अलग दर्जा है. नहीं मतलब लेट्स बी ऑनेस्ट अबाउट, लाइक दिस इज अ
It
फीलिंग
is,
आउट देयर, राइट? लेट्स नॉट
yes,
hide away from it. But I want,
agree.
and we can't change roles, right? जिसका जो रोल है वो उस हिसाब से कर रहा है. How do you strike a balance? Like, is there a debate around this? Is there a, how do you solve this debate, or how do you address this debate? If you don't solve it, at least you must have some opinion on it. So what's your take on
So
this?
Yeah, so my take on this is I think it's very important for everyone to realize how it feels to be in each other's shoes, right? That's where you create a harmonious environment. So that's where we're striking on the balance part. So I'll give you some examples. Like there have been times where especially when we were doing these deal days, रात के वक्त एकदम से ना वो लोड आता है जैसे वो लाइव डील्स ऑन होती हैं.
Yeah,
And one of the things that we started doing was it was not just about having the customer support team there, but also everyone else over there as well, right? क्योंकि वो
right,
एक तो obviously there was excitement and all of that stuff happening, so that everybody could be there and see what was happening, how it was going down, and giving that exposure. Not just ये नहीं कि उन्हें बैठ के देखते हैं, how can they help, how can they be part of that process, can they even attend some calls in the process, right? तो उस लेवल तक लेके जाना टीम के साथ, I think that's very important. तो उसके अंदर so at the end of the day I don't think जो at least my feeling, my understanding of this is कि because like you said everyone has their roles, and what we're always trying is that everyone is heavily passionate about their roles, right? So the role itself does not matter to them कि यार as a CS team I have to come in at this time, or I have to work these hours, and I have to come in the office or not. What bothers more is that how is that collaboration happening with the rest of the team, and are they even if we're sending some feedback to them, are they listening to us, and
right,
what is the response that we're getting from them? This is where I've seen many teams do it suboptimally, right? So having that direct connections with your all of the teams across the board, and having that very open transparency, back and forth, that I think is very critical, or that kind of goes a long way there. So फिर उसके अंदर these smaller things kind of fade into the background when the relationship is very good. There's no hiccups about कि कि नहीं यार मैं engineers से इस तरह बात नहीं कर सकता, या वो
right.
engineers can walk into the CS team at any point and talk about हाँ यार वो मैंने एक टिकट इशू करना है इसको जरा, and we're testing something out, should we do it this way, should we do it that way? So it's a very casual environment, and that kind of helps bridge the gap that you're talking about.
Yeah, we've kind of also been through the same journey because we also have a sales support team
Yeah,
who helps, and there's a claims team as well who helps
yeah,
customers sometimes 24/7, and they have to be
absolutely.
on the phone call and helping the employees with their claims.
Yeah,
um, so moving on, अगर आपके पास एम्प्लॉई है, मतलब आज हम बात करते हैं हायरिंग की बात कर लेते हैं, बिकॉज़ टैलेंट के अंदर जो है वो अ की बड़ी फुकदान है टेक के अंदर, एंड एंड आई एम श्योर वी ऑल ऑफ देम रिगार्डलेस इट्स मार्केट में लोग ज़्यादा है, कम है, वी आर ऑलवेज शॉर्ट ऑफ पीपल, राइट? गुड रिसोर्सेज थ्रू
agreed,
आउट द वर्ल्ड, इट्स नॉट जस्ट पाकिस्तान, थ्रू आउट द वर्ल्ड.
agreed,
बट इफ यू
agreed.
टॉक अबाउट पाकिस्तान, क्या हम ये फ्लेक्सिबल आवर्स, वर्क फ्रॉम होम, या हम सिर्फ फैंसी होने के लिए कर रहे हैं कि यार हमें टैलेंट मिल जाए अच्छा, ताकि यार उसको ज़रा हम बता सकें कि हमारे बेनिफिट्स है, या देयर इज़ अ कन्विक्शन आउट देयर कि नहीं यार नहीं करना है, दिस इज़ व्हाट वी वांट टू अचीव, एंड वी आर नॉट जस्ट डूइंग टू शो ऑफ. And what benefits in your perspective has helps you, like you hire when you are hiring for a tech team, क्या
Mm.
हेल्प करते हैं आपको on these things? Is it
Yeah,
flexible hours? Is it some other kind of benefits that you extend? Please enlighten us.
yeah, yeah. I would like to start with one of the funniest ones I find, and that's the unlimited vacations one. Um, okay. a
Right,
lot of
yeah.
lot of this was made popular by some Western companies, and I always find it very funny whenever I see it. मैं कहता हूँ चलो फिर यहाँ पे जॉब करके ना जाते हैं छुट्टियों पे, and let's see what
Uh,
happens.
what does it
So
mean actually? Do you know? To my understanding, it means that you can work from anywhere. Like you can be on a holiday, but you have to work. I
I
don't know what
mean,
it means actually. I've never really digged
I
into
think
it.
I've different companies have different ways of executing it, right?
Okay.
Some will say कि जी वो unlimited holidays हैं, मगर आप जो ना 8 से ज़्यादा नहीं ले सकते टाइम पे, or something of that. ठीक है
Okay.
ना, आप आर्ट लें फिर अंदर आए फिर आप वापस जाए, ऐसे some weird stuff like that. So every company has done it
Right.
differently.
Right.
But I understand कि the background of it, right, कि वो
Right.
क्यों introduce किया था, just so that a person does not have to think about holidays.
Right.
But I don't think it वो again जैसा आप बात करें कि वो it becomes more of a fancy word to put on your website, जिसमें आप
Yeah.
you're hoping to attract talent basically. Whereas what at the end of the day makes the biggest difference is, I think the benefits have their space, and we'll come to that in a second. But the biggest thing for me has always been the culture, right? जो अगर आप बात करो या अगर आप if you're looking at different posts, ये forums के अंदर बातें हो रही होती हैं, everybody is going to ask about your culture कैसा है company का, right? The first question is always about the culture, and the culture kind of defines a lot of the things, right? कि वहाँ पे काम किस तरह हो रहा है, how's the leadership like, how's the growth like, how's the learning like, all of those things कि वो सही तरह काम कर रहे हैं या सही तरह काम नहीं कर रहे, are they respectful amongst each other, things like that, right? So I think that's like the bare minimum. If any company is obviously focusing on hiring, if they don't have a good culture, if they're not able to what we call ENPS, right, employee NPS को build नहीं कर सकते internally, then
Mm.
they're in trouble anyway. Now coming to the benefit side, once culture की कहानी खत्म हो जाती है, then people actually start looking at कि हाँ यार, what are the benefits? And I think straight down, one of the most requested ones that I've had over the last 10 years of hiring has been the health insurance benefit, right? And it's also understood, right? Because we don't have public healthcare. Healthcare is very expensive. Having that is a huge deal, and um, uh, in some countries like US, I think it's also mandatory. वहाँ पे तो आपको शायद हर जॉब से देना होता है,
Yes, it
यहाँ
is
पे नहीं है.
mandatory. Yeah. Yeah.
तो I think that becomes very important. And then फिर उसके अंदर भी over the years I found out कि there's such a wide variance in within this one benefit. You can have something that has a very low and poor coverage, very cheap as for the company, but in other places you can have something that's very complex and very advanced, and not only for the individual but also their family and also the parents and whatnot, right? So it can become, and the better it becomes, I think that's where the higher value it holds for that particular employee. So I think that has been the number one benefit that I've seen out there. उसके बाद जो ज़्यादातर benefits हैं, they've been around provident funds, bonuses, around any way that the employee could be incentivized to earn more, basically, right? If they could
Right.
get somehow a little more supplemental income. And again, I think this is, if it's from a growth perspective, I understand that and I appreciate that, right? Okay, if a company can help you invest, for example, in a provident fund, I think that's a very good way to incentivize them and give them the right direction. There's companies like PNG do allow you to buy shares and whatnot, right, within their own company and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool things that different companies are doing. On the lower end, so this is something that surprises me a little from time to time, but holds again some level of value in a lot of the team members I've worked with. So things like internet allowances, fuel allowances. These are relatively small benefits, but they could be pretty expensive for the company at some point. Um, but I find it surprising that these are also valued very highly in the teams as well. So that's something that over the years
Mm.
we've collected on, and we're always trying to optimize the offering. Like, what is the real focus on whenever anybody is looking to kind of build this?
Right. And when you initially talked about that, it's first about the culture, and when you say culture, you also mean how do you operate, how do you function as a team, as a whichever role that you're going to be joining in. And I think it's not a question about whether you're working from home, you're working from office. The culture really is what really matters. And but have you come across, like, people who actually not like said, oh, we can't join you because you're not fully remote and we prefer remote? And how do you address that, like if you come across someone who asks you about that?
Yeah, देखो, I think इसमें the very important thing to understand is that there are people in the world who love working from offices, myself included. There are many people out there uh, who are flexible either way. Like उनको आप ऑफिस बुला लें, घर से करा लें, खुश हैं. और
Hmm.
कुछ
Hmm.
लोग हैं जो कहते हैं नहीं यार, हमने तो घर से ही बैठ के काम करना है. We want to work remotely. We don't want to go to the office. We have very strong feelings about that. So
Yeah.
uh, I think there is enough of all kinds of folks around, right? So it's, you have to look at your company and you have to hire. This may I bring this under culture fit. Okay,
Right.
how culture fit is that person? We I believe, like I said, I think that there is value in coming together regularly. You don't have to come in every day, but there is value in coming together regularly so that you can align face to face, right? Um, do you need to do it? This is always again going to be on the company, on the kind of people it has. I can show you in a place if you have a very junior team, right? A junior team will struggle a lot more in doing hybrid or remote work versus a very experienced team, right? So it will completely depend on your company, on your team, and everything else. And but we also understand, if you just look at basic psychology कि यार the human interaction is a part, and जो online वाला part it only
Yeah.
goes so far. We figured
True.
that out during COVID, right? So
Yeah.
having that element is important. So whether you are remote or not, you will eventually want to, go and meet that person and sit with them and talk to them as well. So my advice is always like, hire the right person for your culture. If your culture is in office, you can obviously experiment with remote workers, but then look for people who are willing to come into the office, and there are many of them over there.
Yeah. No, no, fair enough. But so since you have a like you prefer going to work every day, seems like that's uh,
Yeah,
and you but you are fine with the people around, as you said that it's about the culture, it's about building that trust between each other, building that
yeah.
having that documents in place, things writing down things. Um, what kind of challenges did you come across with, and how did you address like with this approach of hybrid? And you rightly mentioned about junior developers, they would face issues working remotely because
Look,
they need a lot of hand holding, they have a lot of
mm,
questions in their heads, and they're getting stuck like after every 15-20 minutes. They need some help, they need someone to talk to and understand how to solve this, or understand this. What kind of challenges did you come across, and what your
look.
solutions that you creative solutions that you came across, you did?
So I think the you've already mentioned this, right? I think at its core, the first challenge that anyone will come across will be trust, right? Okay, do you have that level of trust in your team? Okay, you don't have to sit in front of them and make them do the work, right? So once you solve that's when the other story starts. Now, we've talked about a lot of the stuff already, how you structure the communication and all of that collaboration and whatnot. But I think within Pakistan, we have a set of problems that are very interesting, and they're mostly related to our culture and our infrastructure. And those are the places where I still, as of today, struggle with. So when you look at it from a cultural perspective, most of us don't live in nuclear families, which means
Yeah.
there is going to be a household with one or more families living, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in the house. You will not, you may have a bedroom to yourself, but you will not definitely have a dedicated workspace in the house, right? Majority of the time. And those things start causing a lot of problems because now you don't have a workspace. There's noise around, you can't focus, there's distractions. You're being asked to do things all the time, right? ये चीज ले आओ, सब्जी ले आओ, ये कर दो, वो कर दो, घंटी
You can
देख लो,
say it.
right?
You can say Dhain.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I mean, so that part is a cultural thing within Pakistan. And um, again, I think creating those boundaries is important. And well, before you can do that, you have to educate people about the boundaries, right? आपने बताना है कि हाँ यार ठीक है, अगर आप घर से काम कर रहे हैं, बट can you create this work environment over there first? Because if you can't, then you can't really effectively work at home, right? So that becomes a problem. So that's been one
True.
thing that we've been working on, and I think that's going to continue to work on. The second part is infrastructure, and yeah, मैं पता ही है, from bijli to internet
Yeah.
to
True.
everything else.
Yeah.
So that's always a 50-50, right? So if I have an internet connection, I'll probably have one on the backup and then one more just in case. If I
True.
have electricity, I'll have a UPS and maybe a generator. So इस तरह की जो चीज़ें हैं ना, now and then not just that, right? So let's say everything fails. Now I want to move into a space where I could just sit and work. Now अगर मैं लंदन के अंदर हूँ या न्यूयॉर्क में हूँ या कहीं पे भी हूँ, if my house is no longer accessible, I can just walk to the coffee shop across the road and I can sit there and I can work for 4 hours. Done that, no problems, right? वो बने
Yeah.
इस काम के लिए होते हैं, अच्छे कंफर्टेबल
True.
सोफे रखे हुए होते हैं, there's सेटिंग इस तरह की होती है कि शोर नहीं आ रहा होता है, you can do meetings over there, internet होता है, everything works. Over here obviously we don't even have that, right? कि कि can, I mean you have spaces but very very few जहाँ पे आप जाके
True.
काम कर सकते हैं. So it's things like these that have been a bigger problem, and again, educating the team about this, right? कि यार ठीक है आप घर से काम कर लें, but if we continuously see कि यार हर रोज आप जब मीटिंग से पहले कहते हैं जी मैं इंटरनेट कनेक्शन खराब है, तो it
Hmm.
starts becoming a question mark कि यार अगर हर रोज आपका इंटरनेट खराब है तो when when are you doing all of the work? So
Right.
um, so that's where I think another part of the hybrid comes in, because what you're basically saying is कि यार you can work from home, but at any point if you feel you need a workspace, you have a workspace. So अगर आपका वो इंटरनेट कनेक्शन डाउन हो भी गया है दिन के बीच में
Hmm.
या सुबह के वक्त whatever, so feel free to come by and you have a space, you can come and work from here. And a lot of people I've seen take that advantage कि यार आज पता है कि लोड शेडिंग होनी है, कुछ होना है, so they
Hmm.
will just
Hmm.
simply go to the office and work from there, just so that we're not disrupted.
No, I think fair point in terms of infrastructure. I think that education, that awareness needs to be first, given to the team
Yeah,
before really, because you need to enable those things, and that's why this office exists or wherever you're working is because they've put everything in place. They've got high bandwidth internet,
exactly,
generator
exactly,
backup, air
exactly.
condition, so that when you come to work, you can just sit down, get your tea delivered to your desk,
Exactly,
and just focus
exactly.
on your work, right? And do
Pretty
not
much.
think about all the other things that come that are happening, and the company is there to take care of that. You just need to deliver
बिल्कुल,
work,
बिल्कुल.
and yes, that needs to be really put in place before you can allow that to happen.
Hmm.
We've already like now at 40 minutes. Mashood, it was
इसमें sorry,
great.
Sudhir,
Yeah,
I
you want
just
to add
add one more
anything?
point. I'm going
Yeah,
to add one more point to this. I just wanted to make sure that it gets communicated कि what's the problem with all of this? जो infrastructure problems बात की हैं, cultural problems की बात
yeah.
की है. What is the major impact point for especially the tech and product and design teams जो remotely काम कर रही हैं? And that is focus, right? कि focus is the most valuable thing that you have when you're working, and a single distraction, ये जो आपने बात की ना सारी कि हम लोग इवन चाय तक आपके पास आकर डिलीवर क्यों करते हैं, so that you don't have to think about it, and that is
Yeah.
every single thing is a distraction. And having that closed loop, that area, and sometimes by the way office में भी ये नहीं होता. We might say कि
Hmm.
हमने ऑफिस बनाए इस काम के लिए, but sometimes
Hmm.
offices are so distracting कि लोग कहते हैं यार मैं घर जाके काम करूंगा, मुझे वहां पे ज्यादा अच्छा फोकस मिलता है, which is
सही है,
also
बिल्कुल सही.
valid, right? So and understanding, having an understanding कि हाँ यार ये जो issue है, this has got to do with focus, and if I can provide a better space, that's where I'm going to give the advantage, right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
if it's the same noisy environment जो घर पे मिल रहा है, then there's no incentive actually to even come into the office.
So basically, it's a matter of productivity, right?
Yeah,
Where you can be more productive, be it in
yeah,
office, be at home. It's comes down to that. The discussion is about productivity. It's a discussion is not about कि यार ये perk होना चाहिए कि मैं घर से काम कर सकता हूँ. Doesn't matter. आपको तो काम करना है ना.
बिल्कुल,
Productivity होनी
बिल्कुल,
चाहिए, focus होना चाहिए. Where can you find these things? If you can find at a
very
coffee
much.
shop, in between your office and home, you leave your home, you go to a coffee shop, you don't come to work, but you get the
Yeah,
work done. It's as
yeah.
good as that. right? So
नहीं यार,
that's
I've worked at airport terminals in my years, right? मैं एयरपोर्ट के टर्मिनल में बैठ के कोडिंग का काम कर रहा होता था. I would be अपने हेडफोन्स पहन के, और जहाज उड़ने वाले हैं और मैं आखिरी मिनट में करके कुछ डिप्लॉय कर रहा हूँ, and it's like you can do that, but if you are that kind of person, right? It's not for
yeah,
everyone. So you
it
have to
is not for
define what kind of person you are and work accordingly. Yeah.
100%, 100%. Mashood, I think we've taken a lot of your time. 40 minutes, we are through that. It was a great conversation. I have a question from. Let me just pull it up. It's a bit of a technical question. ये कंपनी की पॉलिसी है, वैसे आपकी क्या है मुझे नहीं पता. लेकिन खुर्रम पूछते हैं कि if any day an employee doesn't feel like working and just gives few hours in a day while work from home, do you consider as a full work from home or a leave? So technical सवाल है इसका. क्या
Yeah,
आप
I don't. So I don't look at it from a technical point of view, right?
right,
You So for us, it is what we don't see is in terms of how many hours you're giving in a day, right? We've never done that. That's part of the ethos, the culture. The focus, I think, should, again, this will vary from company to company, but for us, the focus has always been कि यार आपने जो वैल्यू जनरेट करनी थी, जो आपने कमिटमेंट की थी, वो डिलीवर हुई है या नहीं हुई, right?
hmm,
And normally these commitments are based on a week by week basis for our product team, for our engineering team, for our design team. They're not based on daily basis. So we encourage कि अगर आपने, if you're not in the mood to work, if you're not feeling 100%, take the day off, right? We don't have a very strict protocol of taking leaves and everything. That's part of that. कि people should be relaxed. And again, part of productivity की बात हो रही है ना वापस, कि अगर एक बंदा है वो distracted है for some reason, yeah, he's not feeling well, he's not going to be productive. So what's the point of him even doing half a day, man, right? Half day करके क्या कर लेगा वो?
right,
So we leave it up to them. We care. You guys organize your time. Make it transparent so everybody knows, right? We have a channel where everybody shares कि हाँ यार आज मैं आधे दिन बाद आऊँगा या कल आऊँगा या परसों आऊँगा, whatever,
right,
so that everybody
right.
is aware of it. So that's what we more focus on, rather than कि यार वो आधा दिन का count करना है, पूरा दिन count करना है, because it's irrelevant basically.
Right. But and you mentioned a good point about that the work has to be done. It's divided into weeks. So that means again we will बात की documentation. Maybe there are metrics in place. Maybe you are self-defining your work. आपको एक आपका बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट है उसको आपने वीक में डिवाइड कर दिया है कि इस हफ्ते ये होगा, इस हफ्ते ये होगा, इस हफ्ते ये होगा, एंड everyone knows what they are working on. So it doesn't matter how many hours you put in a day, but what the real result is. Did you get it done? Maybe you did it in 2 days. It doesn't matter, right?
Exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
but the culture of putting down things, the culture of actually documenting things, of making a plan, maybe on a person to person basis, is
Yeah,
is is what I understand is important here.
yeah, pretty much, pretty much.
Yeah. So great, Mashood. Thank you for your time. It was an amazing conversation. I learned a lot. I'll be honest with you. This is one of the topics that which really I wanted someone to really talk to me about because it's kind of a tricky one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, it can be.
Everyone has different perspective on it. Someone has a very hard line approach on it. Someone has a very
Yep,
hybrid approach. But I'm
yep.
glad to hear, Mashood, your thoughts on this, and inshallah, I think we'll have you again for some other topic. One last thing I forgot to ask you. Yes, I wanted to
Sure.
talk to you about was Google Developer Expert and your podcast that you recently started on YouTube, Karachi Dev something. I forgot the full name. Sorry, but yeah, tell us about it. What you're building? You've been doing it for a while. What's the story?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think this started off basically when I came back from my studies abroad. और एक जो चीज़ मुझे बड़ी मिसिंग लगी थी ना कराची में when I came back was कि यहाँ पे वो communities का culture नहीं था उस टाइम पे. This is back 2012, right? And that was the point of starting कि मैंने कहा यार I want, one of the things I want to do over time is to help build these communities, और यहाँ पे एक awareness create करनी है कि जो ऑफिस बंद होके अगर आप काम कर रहे हैं ना साल year by year, you're probably not doing it right. The best way to do it is to come together and learn from each other, और देखते हैं यार वो कैसे कर रहा है, ये कैसे कर रहा है, and you'll find out कि a lot of the things you're doing might be suboptimal, they might be very different, maybe you're doing it better, maybe you're not doing it better. You have to find it out through that. So over the last almost 10 years now अब हो गए, I've been working with different communities, right? उसमें Google communities हैं, Python की हैं, JavaScript की हैं, Facebook की हैं, right? All of them. And that's why I keep showing up everywhere and speaking at different things. So उसमें part of that, Google acknowledged that with their Google Developer Expert category. So उसमें you get to be a part of that community. That's a whole another community of experts who are doing the same thing, and you're learning from them how to do it better for your community, or उनसे advice दे रहे हैं, उनके साथ बैठ के बातें कर रहे हैं. And that's been an amazing experience. But over time, as I've worked through my communities, most recently this started during COVID, when there were no communities, सब लोग घर में बैठे हुए थे, and everything
Yes.
was online. So I
Yeah.
felt कि all of that energy had to go out somewhere. So that's where this concept was born, which I ended up calling Karachi Wala Developer. It's like a
Right.
brand almost. So that podcast was originally my thoughts on specific topics, and there's lots of them on my podcast now over the last 2 years. But more recently, I was thinking about KR. One of the things we don't do enough is talk about our engineering leaders, and that's what I've started recently. I go around, talk to my colleagues basically who are in the industry, who are doing some really amazing work, and they share about some of their thoughts, and we discuss on a few things like we did today. So
Yeah.
this is basically what I've been doing over the last few years.
No, amazing. Best of luck with that. I think
Thank
it's
you.
much needed. We need leaders like you in this space who can become a beacon of light for the young developers who are,
Okay.
who want to learn from you. So it's amazing that you're putting yourself out there so that others can learn from you, and you are being a helping hand. So thanks for that on behalf of the community, of everyone you're doing it, and best of luck with that. Thank you everyone
Thank
for
you.
joining. We'll inshallah be back with the next webinar, hopefully next month. Thank you for joining us today. Allah Hafiz.
Bye bye.